Yo, this is Jay Maya back with another video. Let me talk about what's in the headlines as far as MMA. I can't get any other videos out on some other topics I do, so we'll talk MMA, at least pass us some time. We got some big fights coming up. Let's talk about the UFC card coming up here soon. We got Usman versus Colby. We got Nunes versus de Randamie. And we've also got, what's the other one there? Max Holloway versus Volkanovski. Let's start first with Max Volkanovski fight. It's an interesting fight. Volkanovski's on a good win streak, and he's a decent fighter. I mean, he's a good, well-rounded fighter all around, man. We saw his last fight versus, I believe it was Aldo, and he put on a stellar performance as far as shutting Aldo down. It wasn't extremely exciting, but it was a good performance. He definitely put on a solid performance there. Versus Max Holloway, I think that Volkanovski will be a tough fight for anybody. He's no walkthrough. He's no walk in the park for anybody. But I think that Max should pretty much, he should take this fight and do pretty well in it. I think the Max is going to win it. I think that Volkanovski's got good pace, good striking, good wrestling, good ground game. He's got good everything, but I think the reach advantage, the height and the reach advantage and the pace of Max is just going to be a little too much, and the volume of Max will just be a little bit too much. I don't know if Max will put him away, though. I'm not sure about that. I see the potential there in the later rounds for Max to put him away, but Volkanovski's a pretty solid fighter. I think it'll be a good contest. I'd say I'd go 80-20 on that. 80% Max Holloway, 20% Volkanovski. But you can always be wrong in MMA. But I think that Max will just... I think Volkanovski might try to make the fight dirty, but I think Max will... I think he might start out a little slow in this fight and pick up like we saw at the Aldo fights. But by the end of the rounds, that Max should be taking over that fight. And I see him winning a unanimous decision. Next fight is interesting. Amanda Nunes versus Germaine de Randamie. This, I find, to be honest, is one of Nunes' hardest fights. Germaine de Randamie is no joke as a striker. You know, Nunes is quite... I mean, she could quite very well, between her and Shevchenko, be the female GOATs. And then you put Ronda at bantamweight during her heyday. Everybody hates on Ronda, but Ronda had a streak that nobody else has been able to hold. I don't even think it's Nunes' streak is as many as Ronda is. I could be wrong. But Nunes, she has some flaws in her game, too. I don't know if de Randamie will exploit those or not, but we'll see. Nunes has been winning most of these fights because even the Cyborg fight, Holly Holm, her striking has stepped up. The Shevchenko fight, which a lot of people think she lost. I think she won, but it wasn't a very exciting fight. It was one of her worst performances, in my opinion. But Nunes is solid everywhere. I mean, she's a BJJ black belt. That's how early in her career she was winning fights. But what we have seen her is we've seen her gas in a lot of heavy wrestling exchanges. She does not going to have to worry about that with de Randamie, because with de Randamie, I mean, de Randamie has no ground game, and that's a huge area that Nunes has a benefit to. If Nunes is smart, she'll come out here and she will press her up against the cage, clinch her, and get her down and sub the girl. I mean, once she's down on the ground, I think Nunes will dominate there. If she stands at range with de Randamie, that's not smart for Nunes, because she can get caught. You know, she got caught by Cyborg. She got hit a few times by Cyborg too, but she was the faster. She was quicker to the punch than Cyborg, and she was able to come out of that firefight alive. I believe that de Randamie is probably more of a pinpoint striker, but I say that now, and she has power too. She's knocked out a man in competition. But I say that, but MMA math doesn't add up. But Nunes took out Holly Holm pretty brutally. And de Randamie, in my opinion, lost to Holm. I watched that fight. I think that she should have been deducted 2 points in that fight for hitting after the bell, at least 1 point for hitting after the bell. And I think that Holm should have got the decision in that fight. But, you know, the first time she hit after the bell, I think you hit after the bell, you should get a point taken. The second time, I think you should get 2 points taken. So I think that at least the second time, so that's what I'm saying, it comes down to 2 points. That would have been Holm. But still at range, de Randamie is a dangerous fighter for Nunes. I think Nunes is probably more powerful, but de Randamie's probably a more technical striker. But Nunes, we've seen with Holmes, she can fight technical strikers, although Holmes doesn't really commit to much. She, and she doesn't carry much behind that, except for when she tore up a Ronda Rousey, who should have known better than to fight with like a 17-time or a 10 to, I don't know how many times, I think it was 11-time world boxing champ. But I give the edge to that in Nunes. I'm going to go 60, I'm going to go 70 to 30, 70% to 30% chance on that for Nunes. That brings us to Colby versus Usman. These two fighters are very similar. They're both wrestlers. They use the clinch against the cage. They are both kind of novice strikers, not very great strikers. Their style is very much similar. They both have good cardio. They're both grinding fighters. In many ways, I've always said that Usman and Colby are the same fighters, but one's black and one's white. So, but that's not exactly the truth, because there are some differences in them, and that's what's going to make a difference in the fight from them being so well matched. They're both top-level wrestlers, but Usman is quite a bit bigger than Colby is. Usman he's a big guy. You saw him compared to Tyron, who Tyron's a stocky dude, man. He's diesel. But Usman was just way bigger than him. And the strength difference between him and Tyron, we saw, there was a huge chasm there. So when dealing with Colby, Usman's the bigger man. I believe Usman's going to be the more powerful and stronger guy. Now, Usman has good cardio and pace, but I believe that Colby, being the slimmer fighter, I think that Colby's the faster guy. I think he is the guy with better cardio and better pace. Not to say that Usman's isn't good, but I just think that Colby's is better. You know, I think Colby may be the most well-conditioned athlete in the UFC. That said, when we're dealing with this here, I think how the fight plays out is going to affect. You know, I'm giving it a 50-50 here. I'm giving it a 50-50 because I think early on in the fight that the wrestling is going to dictate a lot. I think that the wrestling, if it nullifies each other, we're going to see a striking match. And it's hard to tell who could win that. I think Usman and Colby are both pretty terrible strikers, to be quite honest. But Colby showed versus Robbie Lawler his ability to put out a pace and pat, and keep them coming. And Usman showed versus Woodley in the clinch that he could put out some hard shots. But in the open, Usman isn't quite the greatest striker, though he does have KOs. So we can't count them out completely, but it's just not their strong suit. So those two fighting there, I tend to think in a striking contest that Colby could outpace him in that and throw a higher volume of shots and win. But he could get caught by Usman if he does. But he didn't get caught by Robbie Lawler, who was a terrific puncher. But he could nullify Lawler with his wrestling. Now, if they go to wrestle early, I think that Usman can outpower Colby and get him down. I think he can get him down, but I don't think he can keep him down. So I think that would be an unwise strategy for Usman to go for the takedown. Because I think if he can't hold Colby down after all the energy he exerts, then later in the fight, that could be where Colby takes over that fight with his pace, and we could see Colby win that fight. He has a good chance with that by just his cardio and his conditioning. Now, if Colby and Usman get in the clinch early, if I was Colby, I would avoid that clinch at all costs. If Usman gets Colby against the fence, I think Usman's the stronger fighter, and I think that he'll win that clinch work. I think he'll land shots on Colby against the cage, and I think he'll wear Colby down against that cage, making the cardio difference that's in Colby's favor, taking that away. And then once he wears him down some, he may have more success later on in the fight getting the takedown and being heavy on top. But I think that's pretty much how it plays out, one of those two ways. So anyway, if you got any thoughts or comments on that one, let me know down below. Have a good day. God bless. Peace.